Welcome to a brief presentation of the 2014 edition of New on Target for Second Level, a coursebook designed around what is often called the action-based approach, meaning that students have at all times an active part to play in the learning process. First of all, you may well ask, why bring out a new edition? Well, since 2010, when the first edition appeared, things have changed. Not just the baccalaureate examination itself, but also the expectations of teachers and the needs of their students. There are 8 chapters to New on Target Second. Each one reflects one or more aspects of the themes laid out in the national curriculum. Here we are looking at Chapter 7, which deals with the whole concept of privacy, one of the major preoccupations of our society, where celebrity is worshipped and information is power. We always start off with a picture that in some way poses a question. None of the pictures in New on Target is simply decorative. They all serve a purpose. As you can see, the question here goes to the heart of the privacy issue. By stimulating a small-scale class discussion based on the picture, you can introduce certain concepts and key vocabulary that will be used and reused throughout the chapter. The contents list is presented in a way that shows you and your students exactly what is studied on each page. Is it an extract from a novel, a newspaper article? Is the main activity a debate, a report to write, or what? The first 6 pages of the chapter deal with the 5 skills as laid down in the European framework. And we start with a double page which highlights the skill of listening comprehension. This is not to say that the other skills are not exploited on the page, quite the contrary. But the emphasis is on developing listening comprehension skills. That is the starting point. On the left, there are staged activities based on a listening passage. The first one is what we call anticipate. Using only the picture, the title, and general knowledge, we prepare students for listening to the recording. These passages are all on the student's CD that comes with the textbook. Then follow 3 stages. Get the gist for extensive listening, getting the overall sense. Go into detail for intensive listening, asking students for specific information, and interact, which goes a step further, enabling real communication in class and widening the students' horizons. To make sure both you and your students can see clearly what skills are required in each activity, there are symbols next to the activity title, as well as the level of the activity, A2, B1, or either. If there is a corresponding recording on the student's CD, we give the number of the track. Not only that, there is a QR code or flash code on the page for students with smartphones. Upload the app, place your phone over the QR code, and you get access to the site where you can listen to the track you want to. In every case, the intensive listening stage is reinforced by a worksheet, a file, which is part of what we call the file book, a collection of 77 worksheets. Here, the worksheet that goes with the Go into Detail activity is File 61. Here it is. The files are not tests. They are there to help students understand. They provide choices and give clues. They can be set as classwork or homework. And of course, we provide you with a corrected version in the teacher's book. The final stage of the sequence is your task. The concept of task-based learning, which features highly in the French national curriculum, is an interesting one and has led us to introduce specific tasks for the main listening and reading comprehension pages and for the civilization pages. There is also a whole page devoted to a more involved task, which amounts to a simulation of a real situation. Here, the task includes research to be done on the internet. For many of the activities, we provide addresses of websites for research purposes. These links are live on the digital version of the textbook. Passages for comprehension are accompanied by a word workbox. These boxes give the references to 2 different types of activity in the file book. The worksheets that help students understand the vocabulary used in the passage, as in this case, or the worksheets that widen their vocabulary in a specific area, as is the case of the word work on the following page. For helping students to understand the vocabulary of a particular passage, there are always two files. They both concentrate on the same vocabulary, but the first is basically in French, aimed at a lower level, and the second in English, aimed at a higher level. It is up to you to decide which one is suitable for your students. Once again, the corrected versions are to be found in the teacher's book. The second section of the left-hand page is a video of 2 or 3 minutes, related to the theme of the chapter and set at a level slightly higher than the initial listening comprehension passage. It too has its own worksheet in the file book.
And of course, by being able to steer dreams, by being able to change the path of them through introducing sound samples, this could help them have better dreams.
I had 3 dreams and they were quite distinct. I don't think any of them were caused by the things that I heard.
On the opposite page, we begin to prepare students for the new listening comprehension section of the baccalaureate. This is one of the major changes to On Target that we have introduced this year. The procedure is the same as for the exam: listening, taking notes, and writing a summary in French. However, the object here is not to evaluate, but to help and prepare. So there is not only an evaluation table, but there is a help box too, which offers practical advice on how to deal with specific aspects of listening comprehension. There is also a toolbox, a vocabulary list that you will find on almost every page. These are the words from the listening and reading passages that students will not know or will not be certain of. When a word presents pronunciation problems, we give the phonetic transcription. Each word is followed by its translation into French. The next double page is given over to reading comprehension. This reflects the second major change we've introduced. We now have 2 short passages and not just one longer one as in the previous edition. This corresponds more closely to recent baccalaureate exams. As for the first listening passage, the staged activities for the reading passages follow the same pattern: anticipate, get the gist, go into detail, interact, and finally, your task. There are also the same support materials, the toolboxes and the word work files. The third double page highlights the skills of expression. On the left, writing; on the right, speaking. The 2 writing activities often use a visual stimulus as a basis for written work: a report, a letter, an essay. The activities cover all types of writing. Similarly, the speaking activities, both speaking alone and in interaction, are triggered by something visual. You will notice that we've often used cartoons as a stimulus. Humour is an essential ingredient of New On Target. After the 6 double pages that concentrate on listening, reading and speaking skills, come the pages with other specific purposes. The first is devoted to art history. It is not designed simply to give information about a particular art movement or artist. We ask students to react, to discuss, to express opinions. They not only acquire knowledge, they practice and progress in their language skills. The opposite page is the project, the main task of the chapter. It is designed in such a way as to bring together the various themes treated in the previous pages, to combine a number of different skills, to reuse and reinforce vocabulary that's just been acquired, and to take students a step further towards autonomy. The activity remains, however, a guided production, since the framework is clearly laid out. The next double page is given over to grammar and pronunciation. Following the now universally accepted principles of deductive rather than prescriptive grammar, we first give students a short warm-up by reminding them of things they should know. Then we ask them to look at example sentences from the reading and listening passages of the chapter. It is from the examples that rules are deduced by the students themselves. The third stage is to put the rules into practice in a series of exercises. The right-hand page also contains practice of a specific pronunciation point. Again, these activities are based on deduction and not prescription. Here we deal with the different occurrences of the apostrophe S. The penultimate double page of each chapter is devoted to what is commonly called civilization, important and interesting features of the English-speaking world that are related to the theme of the chapter. Here we associate the theme of privacy with the Victorian era, when the perceived threat of social unrest, combined with a taste for sensationalism and Gothic horror, produced an obsession with plots, secrets, and double lives. Once again, this is not just an information page. The pictures and the snippets of text are there to provide a stimulus for a number of activities that range from formal ones, such as writing a report, to far more informal ones, such as discussion and research. The final double page is an extract from a work of literature, a long passage particularly aimed at those who will be taking the literary option for the baccalaureate. Of the authors we have chosen, 3 are from the 19th century, Dickens, Oscar Wilde and H.G. Wells. 4 are from the 20th century, Pat Conroy, John Grisham, Bill Bryson and Ian Fleming. And 1 is from the 21st century, Linwood Berkeley. As well as the 8 chapters, at the back of the book there are 10 pages of learning strategies, practical advice on 14 subjects. For example, how to structure a presentation, how to take notes, or how to talk about a picture. This is followed by a 30-page grammar summary, a list of 133 irregular verbs, and 2 glossaries, English to French and French to English. This 2014 edition of New on Target Seconde is made up of the following course components. Firstly, the course book itself, which includes the student's CD. Secondly, a file book of worksheets. The file book also includes tape scripts of the recordings on the student's CD and of the video sequences. Thirdly, a teacher's multimedia pack, comprising a CD and a DVD, that is to say, all recordings, not just those on the student's CD, and the 8 video sequences. And finally, a teacher's book, which includes all the corrected versions of the worksheets in the file book, as well as advice on how to get the best out of every activity. The digital version of the course book is also available, and in the enriched version, there are interactive exercises for students to do on their own or in the classroom. We are sure that this 2014 edition of New on Target Seconde corresponds not only to the demands of the national curriculum, but also to the needs of teachers and students right now.